Brands on Brands.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This week we talk about why you should start a podcast. Start one today. Check it out.
In a world where content is king and your reputation is your brand, how do you build a brand that matters? Welcome to Brands on Brands, a home for those that think different and push their boundaries. This is where branding that matters lives. Now, here is your host, Brandon Birkmeyer.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Brands on Brands. I'm Brandon Birkmeyer, your personal branding coach, and I believe that building a brand that matters today is the only way to thrive tomorrow. I appreciate you being here. Today, we're talking about why you should start a podcast. That's right. This whole season, I've been talking about podcasting and all the different ways to get your podcast going, questions you may have. I've been answering them all season since episode 150. And today I'm going to answer the questions of why you should actually even be considering starting one if you haven't already. Those are my podcaster friends. You might need this show too if you're wondering why I should keep going, why you should keep going with a podcast if maybe you're not seeing the success you're looking for. Have all that for you today. But before we get going, just want to let you guys know that I do have a resource for you. If you guys want to know how to take an hour of content and turn it into a month of content, I've created a step-by-step guide just for you all about repurposing content, how to take something you create in an hour and turn it into a lot of other stuff. Download it now at my free resources page at brandsonbrands.com/resources. Now let's jump into the show.
Brands on Brands.
Why you should start a podcast. That's what we're talking about today. And I'm excited to get into this. I mean, podcasting is not easy. I think when people think about podcasting, they get excited about this idea of having a show, of using their voice, of having something fun to do that puts them out there, maybe gets attention for things that they like to talk about. Maybe they're chasing their passion. Maybe they're trying to be an expert. And all these are exciting motivations. It does sound fun to podcast, but you have to understand the real benefits of podcasting if you want to commit to this long term. Why is that? Because once you get past the fun stuff, you're probably going to hit some challenges. You're probably going to find that it's a lot of effort to create a show, especially consistently, to create something every week, to put in that work, and then also to get it out there, to get it edited, to get it distributed, and to promote it to people is a lot of work. But it is worth it. It is so worth it. But maybe you haven't figured out what your goals are for your show. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, about the best reasons to start a podcast and some of the challenges to expect. And what I hope is that some of you that never even considered it might actually consider it now because you're looking at it with a different lens. What if I told you that all you needed to have a great website was to have a podcast, or all you needed to have a speaking career was to have a podcast, or all you need to build an amazing network that you can build business from is to have a podcast. All that is true. And that's what we're going to dive into today is why you should start a podcast and some of those reasons. So let's start with number one. What I think for anybody out there, whether you're thinking about starting a business or you're in corporate or you're just out of college, anyone out there, I think, would be benefited by finding their voice, honing their perspective, and starting to invest in their personal brand. What do I mean by that? What I mean is you have a reputation that you start to develop for what you do in terms of your career, your profession, or entrepreneurship. You have a reputation. And for a lot of people who enter the workforce, they are trained to do something and they build a resume. They build a history of work and they've learned some skills. However, that resume will only go so far. Why is that? Well, your reputation is separate from your resume. A reputation lets people know what your perspective is and why you are good at something beyond the execution part of it. So what I mean is, for me, I had marketing expertise. I spent 18 years building a resume of marketing. That resume was applicable in terms of me getting jobs, but it wasn't applicable beyond that. It wasn't something that people would know me before they met me. It wasn't something where people would seek me out to ask for help with anything. So if you, hope to eventually grow and progress and maybe even build something of your own, you have to start thinking about your reputation. And for me, a podcast helped me do that. And why is that? Well, it helped me find my voice. And guess what? Even if you plan to stay in corporate forever, or you want to work for someone else forever, or whatever your path may be, maybe you don't want to work at all. I still think finding your voice is essential. Why? Because at the end of the day, we all have thoughts and experiences and history and expertise and skills that we've accumulated over time. And by using our voice and expressing and talking about the things that we learned, the things that we're feeling, the ideas that we have, in expressing ourselves with communication, we develop as humans. And that development fulfills us. That opportunity to use your voice and share your perspective helps you feel like a fulfilled individual, especially when that voice and that perspective helps somebody else. If you're able to give advice, to mentor, to coach, and give back what you've learned to someone else, that is a fulfilling experience, if nothing else, but also potentially a business for those of you that are looking for that. So finding your voice is the very first benefit of starting a podcast and honing a perspective. And what do I mean? Well, we all have ideas and opinions, and sometimes we could talk and talk and talk, but it's not refined. And what do I mean? What I mean is that if you consistently have to speak on a topic you are interested in, then you get better at starting to develop patterns and theses and ways to think about things in easy to explain frameworks. Those ideas are more crisp and easier to explain to other people. And that turns you into a better teacher that helps you help other people. And for those of you that aren't even sure what you would talk about, what I would suggest is go back to episode 150. It's my episode about 10 podcasting ideas for beginners. And just look at like ways that you could create a show that would be about something that you're interested in. All the ideas are there, different ways to creatively think about what a show could be about for you. It's episode 150, brandsonbrands.com/150. But finding your voice is the first benefit. And once you've found your voice, being able to use it and implement it, whether you want to speak at an event or speak to your friends or express yourself in a debate or present yourself in a corporate board meeting, all of that is an opportunity for you to develop. Number 2 is to build a community. And what does that mean? Well, at the end of the day, if you want to have a message that impacts people, you have to gather those people around a message, around something that you believe in, that you want to make change for. And my friend Mike Kim has a great saying, which is, like if you think about like the questions like what pisses you off, what keeps you up at night, and then what change do you want to see in the world, those questions help you tap into what might be your purpose, the things that actually matter to you. And if you can tap into that and start to create content around that via a podcast or a format like that, there's going to be other people in the world that also have those same thoughts and those same feelings, or at least they'd be benefited by you sharing your perspective on those things. So building a community around your message is important. And the best way to do that is to start by creating content. And then people that align with that content will start to listen and want to be in your world. So creating content to form your message, your voice, and then building a community are great reasons to start a podcast, to gather people together with similar like minds and feelings and passions. And then once you've gathered those people, you get an opportunity to help them. And that's number 3, is you get to make an impact. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you get to ask your community, the people that have gathered around you, what they need help with. You get to hear what they're struggling with. You get to have a dialogue where different ideas come up, and you guys together can come up with ways to either help each other or for you to help other people, right? So making an impact is another reason to start a podcast. I know these are very lofty goals, right? But I know a lot of us out there are looking for ways to implement and impact the world in a different way. I mean, some of us are built to serve the people around us. Some of us are built to serve the world. And when you have a tool like this, when you have figured out your voice and how you like to help people and your skill set, the toolkit you bring to the table, all of that becomes a lot easier. But beyond all that, let me talk about some of the reasons that are more pragmatic, right? More practical reasons. If you are already a business owner or you're someone who's looking to start using their voice, create content. You want to build a blog, or you want to send emails out to an email list. You're a small business owner, whatever it might be. You're a coach, you're a consultant, you're a speaker, all of that. A podcast could be what I would say the easiest way for you to create a massive amount of content. It is an engine for content creation. And that engine can be used for you to establish your brand footprint. In other words, whatever your business is, you can use a simple podcast to create content that fills your website pages, that helps you be found on search engines, that helps you put ideas and graphics and messages onto social media, that helps you send emails to your list. All of that can be filled with content from the podcast. And all it takes to create a podcast is 30 to 60 minutes of time per week. And you can do that in a batch, and you can record for a whole month, just your 4 hours in one day, and get that done for the month or whatever it might be. But it's the easiest, fastest way to create content. That content can create opportunities to be repurposed and fill all these other buckets of content. So instead of you trying to figure out every day, what am I going to put into my social media today? Or what email am I going to send to, what newsletter, random email am I going to send to my list? It's all going to be very organic because it all comes from source material that was very concise and in the right format to be repurposed to other people. So podcast is an amazing content engine for you to fill other channels with. And for some people, you could simply do a quick interview, and all that interview content with not even you, but maybe an expert in your field can help fill your website with expert information. So there's lots of ways to use that overall. Another way to think about this is one of the things I never even thought of was, if you're an entrepreneur, especially, or a solopreneur, your business is going to be driven by your ability to network and create relationships. And a podcast is a networking catalyst. And the reason that is a podcast allows you to have a place to talk to people that you don't know in a form that feels safe. When you reach out to someone and you say you have a podcast, you can ask them to come on your show to tell them about your business. That opens the door to a relationship. As opposed to you reaching out to someone and pitching them your service, you can reach out to someone and ask them to tell their story about their business, and then let them know, or what you do without pitching it. Just as a matter of knowledge, people will ask you, who you are and what you're up to, or they'll just look you up on your social media to find out what you're all about. And you don't even have to pitch. They just understand what you do, and you become known as the guy who does that, right? So it's a great way to reach out to anyone in your community that may be a potential customer for you. It's also a great networking tool to reach out and get to know your heroes, the people you look up to. You can start a show that interviews the people that you really look up to in your industry. And guess what? By having them on your show, you start to build clout in your own right as being associated with those people. And along the way, you get to learn. You get to learn all this amazing information from these experts in the field. If you can bring industry experts onto your show, influencers on your show, you get this amazing network of people that challenge you to know more about your industry, and that get to introduce you to more and more people in your field. And because you have to consistently produce a podcast, you are now consistently forced to network, which a lot of us avoid. So, and not just network with anybody that's in your vicinity, but network with higher caliber people that will make your show better. So a networking catalyst is another great reason to start a podcast. One more on the list here, public speaking practice, right? A lot of you are looking to be public speakers because that's going to open the door for your business and other opportunities. And having to create a show every week and talk about the things you talk about helps you in your mind form frameworks, helps you to get used to talking about different ideas, and gets rid of some of those bad habits you might have with all the ums and uhs and likes that you might say in your sentences, because now you're speaking every week and getting used to using your voice and speaking in a way that conveys an idea. So not only will the form and format of your speaking get better, but the actual use of your voice and your public speaking will get better over time because you're doing it all the time. And getting practice public speaking is not easy. Most people try to get on stages without having any practice at all, or they stand up in a room by themselves and try to talk to a mirror, right? That's not great practice, or at least it's too little too late. In a podcast, you have a safe form where you don't feel judged to practice over and over and over again, and you get to listen to it back and refine and get better. And that public speaking will also open doors for you in terms of your business over time. So it's great practice for that. And also, because you have a show, you might get to meet people in your network that are already public speaking and interview those people. And guess what? They might introduce you to the people that know who runs the shows, who runs the conferences and the events, and they can introduce you to them and refer you to them as the next speaker that should be on their list. Or you can go on their shows. Most of these people that you're interviewing might already have a show of their own. You might be able to go on their show too, now that you've developed a relationship. And that's more PR that helps build your reputation, that might open doors for you to have public speaking opportunities. I'll tell you, a lot of the public speaking opportunities I've had to start with all came to me because I already had a show, and they can see what I talk about. They already know what I'm about. They see that I know how to convey my ideas. And I built this network of people that might be referring me to the people as the next person that they should consider to speak. So it's a great door opener for that overall. And then last, I want to talk to you about a few challenges that come up along the way, because I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of work that goes into creating a podcast. And I alluded to that at the top of the show. I think the first one is the motivation to continue on and on and on overall, just because it can be a lot of work to come up with ideas every week. But if you understand the impact of all the reasons we just talked about to start a show, those challenges go away, because now you have motivation because you know what the benefits are. When a lot of people start shows and they don't tap into all these opportunities, or they don't have those goals in mind, they don't have a good reason to keep them going when things get a little challenging, right? So one of the challenging things is just to come up with ideas every week, literally just to have something that, that helps you generate ideas week after week that fills a show. That is actually something we all struggle with. But if you can design these things up front, I have some ideas for that. It's a lot easier. So I design an entire season of shows, 26 episodes, all at one time. I sit down, I write down my ideas, and I come up with what the whole season is going to be about. So when I get to the recording stage, it's easy. I already know what my topics are going to be for the next 26 episodes, right? And if you guys are interested in any of that, or you're having challenges yourself with podcasting, I coach people on both how to start podcasts and also how to grow them, how to create more content each week, and how to repurpose it to other channels, all of that. And I can work with you in one sitting or on a weekly basis, depending on what you're looking for. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me, brandsonbrands.com/coach. Let's set up a time to chat. I'm happy to work with people and help them out. And you can email me anytime at brandsonbrands.com, anytime if you have questions. Anyway, so one of the challenges is being motivated to keep going because of the content creation part of it. Another is because of the editing part of it. For me, from the beginning, I pretty much outsourced my editing every week to someone who is better at it than I am, right? And if you find, someone who's a freelancer, maybe they're overseas, maybe they're not, it could be as little as $25 an episode, up to 40 or so, depending on what you're looking for. So even that cost, that dollar cost, could be a challenge for someone. Or if they're going to do it themselves, it might take you a couple hours to edit an episode, right? Those are challenges. And again, if you have the motivation and you know what the benefit is, then you understand that that's the challenge you're willing to take on, or that you're willing to pay for, right? And if you're not, then there are ways to build your podcast to limit the amount of editing so that all you're doing is turning it on, running the intro, and then recording and being done with it at the end and throwing your outro. If you can reduce the amount of work that goes into it, that might keep you motivated. But again, I think it's all about having the right mindset and motivation to begin with to get past those challenges. But it is true. Editing is not easy. Recording new content every week is not easy. Another challenge is growth. People will start their podcast, they'll do 7, 8 episodes, and then they'll quit because they aren't seeing an audience that is worthwhile. In other words, they might have 30, 40 listeners, right? The average podcast has like 180, 170, 80 listeners to each episode. And that's for people that are doing it well, right? And that's the average, but it's people who've committed to doing it for a long period of time. That's not a lot of people. 180 people is not a lot of people. It can be a valuable amount of people. Like if you have the right people listening and they're potential customers, that's great. But for some people, that doesn't seem worth it when you can be getting thousands of listens and watches on other social media types. But again, if you know the reasons you're creating a podcast and how easy it is to create a podcast, these challenges seem to wash away. Because by the way, if you create the podcast, now it's easier for you to do these other channels that do have more eyeballs. But understanding going into it that a podcast is not a great discovery tool is helpful. You know that you're using your podcast as a content engine, not as something that gets you an audience is helpful. Because what does that mean? It means that you're going to design the show to then be repurposed to those other channels. But why create a podcast then to begin with? Well, because it is faster than creating a video show. It's faster than writing blogs. It's faster than just posting on social media and having to come up with something every week. It is the most normal, natural way to communicate, is just to speak your mind or to have a conversation with someone via an interview, right? So in my mind, it is the easiest, fastest way for the average person to get started creating content. And then you can upgrade to the other things. So that content engine piece matters. But if you don't see an audience and you're only doing podcasting, that could be a challenge. But if you understand that this is a networking catalyst, that this helps you find your voice and make an impact, that this opens doors for you for public speaking, and that also this is an engine for you to put that content onto these other channels that will get you found, suddenly that challenge washes away, right? So that's another challenge that people come across. It's very natural. And then beyond that, I think over time, a lot of people, they are just afraid that they don't know what the show should be about. They are afraid that they can't think of the perfect idea for a show. And this is the last challenge I'll leave out there for you guys. And I'll tell you this, as long as you can figure out the vicinity of your show, in other words, the category that you generally want to talk about things in, you want it to be a marketing podcast or a business podcast or a finance podcast or parenting or health or wellness. If you can pick the general vicinity, the category, and just look at Apple iTunes podcasts at what their categories are, and just pick one to be in. As long as you know the general category, you're fine in terms of getting started. Just create content that stay within the bucket of that category and just come up with topics that make sense and start using your voice, start recording things. You don't even have to distribute them. You don't even have to release your podcast. You can just record episodes. And in the process of recording episodes and using your voice, you will find your voice. It's not by you planning the perfect show that you're going to have this great show. It's by you starting, using your voice, and then you honing that over time to figure out, oh, this is what I really like to talk about. You getting into the habit of creating content is going to help you hone and find your voice. And that is going to help you find the perfect niche for your show over time. But you have to start. You can't just suddenly in your mind come up with the perfect show. You have to start creating content every week and then refine what that show's about over time. That's my advice for you to get started. And again, episode 150 has 10 podcasting ideas for beginners. But if you're still challenged having that idea, that's what I help people with when I get them to start their shows, is refining that idea, helping them figure out what is the vicinity to plan to get started, and what are some of the themes that they should come up with that make the show theirs and ownable to them. And then I give you some of the tools and resources to get you going and the best habits to practice. But if you need help with that, that's brandsonbrands.com/coach. I am currently looking for 3 or 4 people to help right now in the second quarter of 2021 and going into the summer of 2021. So reach out to me if you guys have want some help on that. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this show. Take a screen grab and tag me on Instagram if this helped you, at Brandon Birkmeyer. And remember, building your brand is a journey. Tackle little items each day and move forward. I hope these tactics shared today were helpful in building your personal brand and helping you get more comfortable with content. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you all next time.
You've just taken your marketing knowledge to another level with this episode of Brands on Brands. But we have plenty more ways to help you build a brand that matters. Head over to brandsonbrands.com for resources, as well as access to our blogs, videos, and exclusive coaching sessions with your host. Be sure to visit brandsonbrands.com.